Hi everyone, my name is Zoe Abelson, a client advisor here in Hong Kong, and today we have a really special guest, Tay Liam Wee. I have the pleasure of seeing you almost every day here, but for our viewers that are overseas, we thought it would be really fun to do an intro to one of the founders of WatchBox and learn a little bit about your personal collection, why you love watches, and of course how you got into the industry.
I've been in this watch business for almost 30 years. The first career was with Sincere Watch, and we introduced a lot of these brands on top of the major houses like Patek Philippe, Vacheron. We brought in a lot of contemporary watchmakers back in those days, in the 90s up to the 2000s. And I'm so happy to see that all these artisanal watchmakers have already made their mark and has become a major brand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, brands like Franck Muller, Lange Söhne, and FB Journe, Francois Paul Journe.
So Sincere Watches was based in Singapore, but you really brought these brands that were heavily known in the US market as well as the European market, you really brought them to Asia. So how did you do that? How did you conquer these brands and bring them over to this market?
Well, at Sincere, we were catering to the upper echelon of all the watch collectors. And of course, all these watch collectors, they were buying the best that they had produced from Switzerland. And after a while, we were like sourcing for newer makes. We were always trying to purvey specialty watchmakers, people who could bring unique watches into the market. And that's when, in 1992, I met Franck Muller in Geneva at the SIHH fair. And when I saw Franck's creation at the SIHH fair in 1992, and that was the Franck Muller Curvex. It was a tonneau shape with a beautiful curved glass. And he brought it out in the market. We thought that was something very interesting. That was something very fresh at that point in time, because all the watchmakers, they were basically repeating a lot of traditional models. And this was something that was very attractive.
A bit avant-garde.
Very avant-garde, but at the same time, it was classical watchmaking.
Absolutely.
And with a twist. And I thought that would be a very, very interesting model to introduce to the customers.
And how did it do?
Well, when we brought it in, I met Franck in 1992, and he was building watches from out of his kitchen.
Wow.
Yeah, and when we brought his watches, it was like literally his watches were handmade. It wasn't perfect, but the customers received it very well.
Do you have any Franck Mullers in your collection?
I have, all from the initial collection. The Perpetual is one of my most favorite pieces, a Perpetual Franck Muller Curvex. And of course, what you have here is the Master Banker. And the interesting thing was, with Franck, because he's a living watchmaker, we could share ideas with him. We could share ideas about what the customers like in the marketplace, and we discuss it, and then he goes back, he think about it, and then he will come back with the design.
So there's a touch of Liam Wee Tay in certain Franck Muller models, you're saying?
I won't say that. It was a very, very close relationship that we worked with him, and we were giving him ideas. And then we were sitting one day with a customer, and he was saying, he's a banker based in London, and he was saying, I'm working hard with all the 3 time zones between New York, London, and Asia, but I don't have a watch that can give me the time with all these 3 different markets. So Franck went back and came out with this idea, and he created the Master Banker.
Amazing.
And the Master Banker, the unique feature about it is that there are 3 time zones in a watch, and it's one movement, and it's all controlled and managed by one winding system.
Wow.
And this is a patent, and it's been one of the most successful watches that he has launched.
Absolutely. So now we know about the Franck Muller on your wrist, and it looks like you have a wide variety of other watches in your collection. So why don't you tell us about these pieces here and what you love about them?
Yeah, so in order to constantly delight our customers, we have to be able to purvey the most special and the most unique kind of creations that's available from the industry. So in 1991, since the fall of the Berlin Wall, there's this the company Mannesmann. They went into Germany to invest and build up this brand, Lange Söhne. And I met Mr. Blum Line, Mr. Gunther Blum Line, the CEO of the LMH group. And he was showing me this watch that came out from Germany. Of course, during that time, all the connoisseurs and collectors, they were used to top watches coming out from Switzerland.
Right.
Nobody would expect anything coming out from Germany. But when I saw the Lange one, it was a fabulous piece. It was such a pure piece, watchmaking at the highest level. And here you have this Lange one, and they crafted it out of the movement was with the German silver, you know. And in terms of the design, it was a pure design, as you can see.
Very simple aesthetic.
Very Bauhaus. And if you were to notice that in terms of the design, the big date was a development at that point in time.
Right.
No watches have this big date system.
Right.
And a lot of customers appreciate it because they could actually see and read the date.
That's helpful, I think.
Yes. And if you look at the dials, all the dials, there's no overlap.
Right.
You can read it very, very easily.
One that has definitely caught my eye is the FP Journe tourbillon that you have laying right there. And it looks really special from here, but let's take a closer look and tell us a little bit about how you acquired this piece and what's special about it.
So again, if you look at the industry, all these brands have been there for a century or two. And Francois Paul Journe, whom I met in Geneva, he came up with his resonance when he created this watch. These are watchmakers from the 90s. And it was such a spectacular piece with one watch with two movements, exactly symmetrical, but with a very distinctive design, which until today you can identify as the Francois Paul creation. So we did that, introduced that to the customers, and
how did it do?
Again, it was a phenomenal success that we had. But you have to remember that Francois Paul is a very, very special watchmaker, and he keeps his production in very small quantity. Even until today, I believe he's still doing 700 to 800 watches per year. And with that, we introduced to the market, and it had a very, very good reception.
Wow. And
this is a personal collection of mine. So as Francois Paul continued to develop his watches, he went into a tourbillon movement, which at that point in time was one of the highest level of movement manufacturing. And I was suggested to him that why don't you do something that would be spectacular, that comes in a black mother of pearl dial.
Wow.
You know, to accentuate your design. And this was the #1 piece that he made, and this went into my collection.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how often do you wear this piece?
On special occasions, because it's a special watch. It's a delicate watch.
Absolutely.
And I wear it, every time I wear it is to an important occasion, and it's a good reminder of the history that we have had in building up the brand here in Asia.
Absolutely, and we've seen such an amazing number of collectors come to WatchBox looking for starting their collection in FP Journe, or they already have a huge collection in FP Journe and they want to continue it. And it's a brand that I personally have begun to fall in love with, and it's so amazing to see a piece in the black mother of pearl. I personally have not seen that before, and it's just super fabulous. I'm jealous.
Yes,
I'm definitely jealous of that one. Tell us about this AP off shorts. not one that I've seen ever before. It looks super special, so there must be a story behind it.
So for Sincere, we're the official dealer for Audemars Piguet in 1972.
Wow.
And 1972 was the year that the Royal Oak was created.
Right.
And we sold a lot of the watches. We have a very, very deep relationship with the company. And when it came to our 50th anniversary, Sincere's 50th anniversary, we approached them and said that we want to make a limited edition
Oh, cool.
in series of 50 watches to commemorate our Jubilee celebration. So we went back into the historical records and we looked at all the watches that they created. And I remembered that we used to sell a watch, Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, that was a tantalum. And however, that watch was a really heavy watch because tantalum is such a special material. And we said that why don't we do a steel Royal Oak with a tantalum bezel? And this was the creation that we did.
Love it.
Yeah.
Very special. I think tantalum, you really don't see it that often, so to have that as a part of your anniversary piece is really cool, really unique.
Yes, in fact, this watch was created in 2004, and today if you look at the auction market, it is one of a much desired important piece that people are collecting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's maintaining a very, very strong price.
And you know most of the 50 people that collected this watch. Were they special friends of yours or just good clients of Sincere?
They were all very good customers of Sincere. They followed us for a long time. And when we created this piece to commemorate our company's anniversary, in a way we rewarded them with a special piece from our creation.
It's very special. So now it looks like the last one on this tray is the yellow gold day date with a blue vignette diamond dial. Something that you don't see every day. The dial is pretty cool. So tell us a little bit about this piece and what it means to you.
So when I entered the industry in the 80s, the Rolex President was the classic. It was the king of all the watches as it is today. And of course, as a young man, I couldn't afford to buy a President. It was meant for the president.
Yeah.
So now that I got into this pre-owned business through WatchBox, I look back at this watch and I said, this is a very, very important watch for me. It's a 18038, I remember it. So I actually recently acquired this watch to be part of my collection.
So that's a new acquisition.
It's a new acquisition.
To join these classics.
Yes, it is a classic.
It is
itself.
absolutely a
Yes,
classic.
Yes.
So these are some core pieces in your collection, some of your favorites. But being here at WatchBox in Hong Kong, obviously we get in a lot of amazing pieces. What are some watches that you've had your eye on to add to your collection?
So again, when I look at all these watches, it is also a reflection of my career. And I've sold so many watches, almost $2 billion in total. And I begin to look back and I see this Lange datograph. So this watch is crafted in platinum. And you know, the first model that they introduced was a Lange 1. And as you go along, the watchmaker, they would start creating more and more sophisticated models. And when they came up with this chronograph, this big date chronograph, it was a very, very special piece. Because there's nothing that's available in the market that has a look like that.
Right.
Right? And more importantly, if you look at the movement of this watch, it's one of the most complicated and beautiful creation of a chronograph movement. So combined with that and the aesthetics of the watch, we believe that this will become a collector's favorite. And we had tremendous success with this Lange 1 datograph.
So this is the first generation.
This is first generation datograph.
So it seems like also on theme with your other watches, you want to get the pieces that remind you of your career at Sincere and what you fell in love with the industry.
And more importantly, this is also the genesis of the brands that when they first entered the market. Don't forget, these watches came into the market in the 90s, in the
Right.
2000s. And this is one of the most original creation. But of course, getting in the WatchBox, then I have the opportunity to start looking
Temptation.
at all these watches that they've built, and I have time to reflect upon it. And I'm slowly enjoying picking out the special pieces that are meaningful. And of course, with those pieces, it's part of the collection, and we can always upgrade and recurate as we go along.
So you briefly mentioned the resonance before when you talked about meeting FP Journe himself and how he got into watchmaking. So here we have a platinum earlier model, I guess the first generation. So why do you think that's a piece that is worthy of collecting, and what's special about it?
Again, this is the first generation of the FP Journe. And if you were to look at the movement in the back, it's an exact symmetry of two movements put into one. And if you look at the watch back in the 90s, you don't find anything like that.
Super unique.
It's so super unique in that sense. And of course, as FP Journe gained more and more success, and he created models in a platinum, which is the purest of all precious metal to make a watch in. And if you look at this watch, it's just pure simplicity and perfection. And even until today, a Journe watch, you can recognize it,
Absolutely.
you know, from a mile away. And the interesting thing about the first generation is that the movement is made in brass.
Right.
And they have upgraded it to a rose gold movement and all that, but this is the most original of his movement. I think this is a pure classic and a treasure.
It's such an avant-garde piece that, I mean, any generation of the Resonance is going to be special, but the first generation, especially since they're discontinuing it after 2019, I think that's going to be a piece that I totally agree with you. I think that's going to be a big collector's piece.
Yes, it will definitely go into a history book of great watchmaking.
Absolutely.